Hi, my name is Jennifer French, and I'm coming to you from the Yoga Sanctuary in downtown Punta Gorda, Florida. And today I'd like to take you through a short sequence that will, or at least has been designed to help you find this posture that I'm in right now with a little bit more ease. This pose is called the Virasana or the hero's pose. And I'm sitting right on the ground with no support beneath me. And it's generally a pretty hard pose to find in most bodies. It's taken me years and years to get here. So this posture sequence that we're going to go through will address some of the things that we need to focus on in order to find this pose. Now, it's not necessarily going to look like this. Some of our knees don't bend this much. Some of our feet or ankles don't move in this direction. So we're always looking for our own version of the pose to make it a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more accessible. And we'll close our sequence with a little exploration of that as well. However, let us get started by looking at some of these props that we'll eventually be using. I have two yoga blocks here. You can use anything that you've got. These yoga blocks are made out of cork, which is really great. They're really stable and solid. But if you don't have blocks, maybe you've got some books, maybe you've got a couple cans of soup, whatever you have, you can use. We also have a strap. And again, if you don't have a yoga strap, you might use a scarf or a tie or a belt. And then finally, we've got a blanket. So if you've got some of these things around you, gather them up and then meet me here on the ground and on your back for a little exploration of postural work that we can do to find Virasana with a little bit more ease. So as I make this shift onto the ground and onto my back, I'll move my blocks aside. I'll have my strap nearby because we might use that. Then I'm going to take this blanket behind me and I'll use it as a little support for my head because that always feels a little bit better. At least for me it does. So go ahead and make your way down to the ground. And then once there, adjust that blanket so that it's only under your head and not under your shoulders. Right? So your shoulders can release to the ground here. Then we'll take our feet open, nice and wide, maybe even as wide as your mat. And then let your knees fall in towards each other. So careful here that you're not forcing your knees together. They might touch, they might not. We want to look for where we're most comfortable. And then we'll come to relax our arms alongside the body, letting the arms drape away from us a little bit. And then let your eyes close or your gaze simply soften. And we'll take just a few moments here to settle in. So we let our bones grow heavy, really sink into the support of the earth. You might notice just where it is that your body is touching the ground. You might feel your feet on the ground, your hips, back of your torso, shoulders and arms. And as you allow yourself to settle in here, bring your awareness then to your breath. Start to find a nice, easy rhythm of breath. We're not looking for the biggest breath we have, just a gentle, comfortable rhythm. Try to focus on breathing in and out through your nose. And after a few rounds of this nice, easy breath, we'll start to move our body a little bit. So come to open your knees, maybe just as wide as your feet, keeping the feet nice and wide. You might slide your arms away from you a little bit more. And then with your next inhalation, let your knees drape to the right. And as you exhale, bring your knees back up to center. And then we'll inhale and let the knees drape to the left. and exhale back up to center. So you'll keep moving from side to side, and notice as you're moving, you're coming to the inner and outer edges of your feet. So whenever your knees drape one way, right, that opposite leg, you're on the inner foot. And then as your knees drape the other way, that inner leg, or rather the outer leg, you're on the outer foot. So try not to get too complicated with it. You're really just letting your legs go from side to side. And as you do, feel the lift of your hip, lift of your buttock, a little arch in the lumbar. We often call these windshield wiper legs. And sometimes you feel a nice stretch through the belly region or the side of the waist. So notice what you're feeling as you move. And then the next time you go to the left, let's let that be the last approach. We'll then come back up to center. And once at center, bring your feet in a little bit. Yeah, they don't have to be quite hips distance, but about that. And then let's slide this blanket out from under our head so that we're not lifted too high with the head and our neck spine has its natural curves. And then draw your arms in fairly close to your body. Let's turn the palms down. And then with your next inhalation, simply feel your belly swell. Your lumbar, your low back will arch. And then as you exhale, pull your navel towards your spine. You'll feel your lumbar press into the ground. Let's do that again. Inhale, swell the belly. Exhale, spine to the earth. Now this time when you inhale, push into your feet and your hands and lift your hips up. This is what we call a bridge pose. And as you exhale, lower right back down. And again, we'll inhale, lift the hips up, and exhale, lower back down. Let's do that about 3 more times. Lifting on the in-breath. Don't worry about how high you go. Lowering on the out-breath. If you're lifting just maybe a quarter of an inch, that's fine. Some of you might go higher. Some of you even lower. Now this next time that we lift, let's hold that lift for a moment. Take a couple breaths, and as you do, can you feel like you're stretching your thighs forward? You're reaching your knees forward, opening the front of your hips here, but definitely feeling some work, some opening, stretching through the front of the thighs. And then when you come to next exhale, lower back down. Let's pause there for a breath. And if you like, you can pull your knees into your chest for a moment and gently rock from side to side. Yeah. Massaging the low back and the sacral area. And then we'll come back to a place of center. Bring your feet to the ground. And now we're taking that strap. We're going to bring it over to the side, to the right side here. And then I'll take my right arm overhead and roll over to the right side. Now we're not getting up. In fact, I'm going to slide that blanket back under my head now because that feels a little bit better. Now, draw your knees in fairly close. And then take your top knee, your left knee, even closer. Right? You're really hugging it into your body. Now, as you do, can you slide your hand down to your ankle and then slowly begin to point that knee away from you? You're pulling the heel towards the buttock. Now, what happens if you don't quite reach? It doesn't feel quite comfortable to do that. This is where your strap comes in handy. So I'm going to take the strap around my ankle and I'm going to hold the strap. And then the same idea, I'm going to slowly start to push that knee away from me and pull the heel towards the buttock. Right, now notice what you feel. Is there a stretch down the front of your thigh? That's what we're looking for. All right, we'll take a couple of breaths with that. Now, this down leg, does it have to be bent? No, it doesn't. You could certainly stretch that leg long onto your mat as well. And then after a few breaths, we'll slowly release. So I like to bring the knee back up. The down knee, if you straightened it, bring that up as well. Take the strap off your foot if you're using one. Let's put that aside and then make our way onto our back. Now, you're going to see back view now, and that might be helpful to see how I catch my foot, how I'm holding my foot. So sorry for back view. Let's roll over to the opposite side. I'll bring my strap along as well. So as we roll to the opposite side, we're coming on to sideline pose. The knees are pulled up again, right? So your knees are pulled up towards you. You're going to draw your right knee in, slide your hand down towards the ankle, and then slowly reach that knee away from you. So you can see now on this side how I'm holding the ankle, how I'm holding the foot. And again, what happens if we don't reach? We use that strap. We take the strap onto the ankle and then we stretch back same way, right? There might be a bend in your elbow, that's fine. So either using strap or your hand, and then you can straighten the down leg as well. So be where you're most comfortable. You might find that there's a little challenge here in your balance as you're holding the pose. We'll take another couple of breaths. And then we release. We'll pull the knee up, taking the strap off the foot. Bring your other knee up. And then let's come onto our back body again. So once you've come onto your back body, moving your strap off to the side, you can adjust your blanket under your head. Let's pause to just feel for a moment. Good. Then we'll come to drape one arm overhead again and roll over to that side. Doesn't matter if it's right or left. We're going to press ourselves up to now a tabletop position or the hands and knees pose. I prefer to use a blanket underneath my knees. It just feels a little bit better for me. So you can do that too. Taking a blanket just about south of midway down your mat. Have now at least a single block available to you. We'll put that right off to the side. And then we come to hands and knees with the shoulders right above the wrists and the hips right above the knees. And so we call this a tabletop posture. Give a good push into the earth here. You might feel yourself kind of collapsed between the shoulders and then try to lift up and away from the ground. So we maintain this nice active lift. Now with your next inhalation, we're going to tuck the toes under, arch the spine away from the ceiling and look forward. And as you exhale, point your toes back, round your spine up towards the ceiling and let your head hang. Inhale, tuck the toes, arching the spine. Exhale, point the toes back, rounding the spine. So this brings some movement, not just into the spine itself, but into the ankles, into the feet. We start to feel what's happening really in our feet, in our ankles. Is there a stiffness? Is there ease in the movement? What are you finding? So after a few rounds of this, when you come to your next inhalation, you'll tuck your toes under and you'll keep them tucked under as you exhale and push your seat back towards your heels. So give a good push into the earth here and shift the weight of your body back to the seat, to the heels. This will feel like a really strong stretch through the toe joints, through the soles of your feet, sometimes the ankles themselves. Right, so this is a variation of what we might call the toe squat. If this feels like a good stretch for you, stay there. You don't have to change anything. Another option is to walk your hands towards your knees and lift up about halfway. But notice I'm keeping my spine long. I'm not rounded here, nice and long in the spine. And then the final option is to sit all the way up onto the heels. Now, this is a pretty strong stretch. And if you like, you can minimize that stretch by taking a block and bringing it between your calves and your seat, right? So we'll pause with that for a moment. Wherever you are, if your hands are on the ground in some way or you're sitting here with me, let's take a breath together. And then we'll come forward. If you're upright, move that support aside if you're using it. Bring your hands to the ground. Those of you that are pushing back into your heels, come up to the tabletop again. And then uncurl your toes. You might want to wiggle them out a little bit. Bring the tops of the feet to the ground and press back once again. And let's pause there. So we're in a nice extended child's pose. We're really long through the waist. Depending on the bend in your knees, you might find yourself more upright, and that's okay too. So be wherever you are. Take a couple breaths with me here. And with your next inhalation, nice strong reach through the arms. Spread your fingers, spread your palms. Come up to the hands and knees one more time. See that your hands are about shoulders distance apart. And then come to tuck your toes under once again. This time we're going to send our hips up and back into the downward facing dog. You could bicycle your knees out here if you like. A little pumping action through the knees is always a really nice way to explore the pose. You see it gets that movement into the toe knuckles again. So you feel a little stretch maybe through the soles of the feet as well. And then we'll come to stillness. We'll take a full breath. And then bring your knees back down to the ground. Once your knees are on the ground, let's take those two blocks that we had, bring them onto the mat so they look like this. And we'll bring our hands up to the blocks. So you'll see that the blocks are slightly forward of my shoulders. My hands aren't under my shoulders, and that's fine. Let's then draw our right knee forward, bringing that foot between the blocks. You'll see that my right knee is about over my right ankle. That doesn't have to be exact, but it's about, right? Tuck your left toes under. Give a good push through the left heel and see if you can lift your left knee up and off the ground. So we're in a nice lunge here. Can you see that I've got a straight line pretty much from my left heel through the crown of my head? This is reminiscent of what we did in the hands and knees pose, the tabletop. You might find that you're collapsing here through the shoulders. Give a good push into those blocks and lift upward. Let's take another breath here. And then we'll bring that knee back down to the ground. Once it's there, let's shift our right knee back. And then we'll come to draw the left knee forward. So we bring the left knee forward between the blocks. See that your knee is just about over the ankle, right round about. Tuck the back toes under, your right toes under. Give a good push through that heel, and can we lift the knee up and away from the earth? And we press through the heel, lifting the thigh. Remember the upward lift of energy through the shoulders. And we'll take a couple breaths here on this side. Just noticing what this side feels like, if it's different at all for you. Now this time, instead of stepping back, can we shift the weight of our body slightly forward? See how I'm kind of going back and forth here. Shifting slightly forward, we'll then step that back leg forward to meet the forward leg. Glide your chest forward. You can be at a half fold, and then let yourself deepen into the fold. Bend your knees a little bit. Bring your hands up to your hips, and then with your next inhale, push into your feet and slowly rise, rise, rise. As you lift your torso, your legs then straighten. And here we are. We find ourselves in the upright position, or what we might call the mountain pose, or Tadasana in the language of yoga, Sanskrit, the language of yoga. So feeling your feet connect to the earth, root down into the feet, and lift up through the legs. Grow tall through your spine and reach the crown of your head upward. So we'll take a moment now to move the blanket that was on our mat aside so that we have lots of space. And we'll then take, let's see, I'm going to shift to the opposite side of my mat. You can stay wherever you are, that's up to you. But I'm going to come to this side now. And then coming back into the mountain pose, our feet are comfortably wide. Like allow yourself to have some stability. Allow yourself to have a nice wide base here. And then bring your hands to your hips. And from this place, we'll take a nice big step back with our left leg. So careful when you step back that it's not so long that your back heel doesn't touch the ground. We want to be able to root down into the earth, touching the earth with that back heel. And if you feel a little wobbly, then maybe heel toe this front foot over to the right a little. Our torso faces forward. We're not forcing that in our hips though, right? Your hips can be a little off center, but your torso faces forward. Now with your hands on your hips, let's grow really tall in the spine as we inhale. Keep that lift as you exhale, bend your right knee. Don't worry about how far you bend it. Let's see what happens. Inhale, straighten the leg. Exhale, bend the knee. Now notice if your knee really wants to go beyond your ankle, that's okay, but that might mean that you want a little bit of a longer stance. So you can adjust your stance here too. So move with our breath a few times in and out. And then when you next bend your knee, let's hold that bend. Feel a nice upward lift through your spine. You might feel a good stretch in the front of that left hip. And then with an inhalation, if you're feeling pretty comfortable, let's take the arms up into what we call the warrior one pose or Virasana one. We'll take a couple breaths here together. And then with your next exhale, lower your arms down. Let's bring the hands to the hips and step forward. You can take a little side to side and step here, finding a place of center of stability. And then we'll pause. Let's take a moment to just feel differences between the two sides of the body. And then we'll bring our hands back to our hips. And now we step back with the right leg. So nice big step back. But again, it's not so long that you aren't able to get that back heel to the ground. Right? And you'll see that my heel is really turned out. So my toes are pointing a little bit more to the front of the mat than they are to the side of the mat. Same thing as we did on the first side. If you're feeling wobbly, heel toe that left foot to the left. And then allow your torso to face forward. Again, don't force that through your hips. They may or may not shift with you. Good. Now let's inhale. Nice tall spine. Exhale, bend your left knee. Inhale, straighten the knee. Exhale, bend the knee. And let's do that just a few more times together. Once again, noticing if that knee wants to go beyond the ankle, you could change your stance. Or if you bend the knee and it only goes just slightly forward, maybe your stance is too long, right? So we adjust so that we're finding ourselves somewhere over the foot, over the knee, over the ankle rather. Yeah. Good. Then next time you're bending the knee, let's hold that bend. And again, if you're comfortable, you're feeling stable, we'll then inhale our arms up. And we'll pause to breathe here. The warrior pose, warrior one on our second side. Now with your next exhalation, lower your hands down. Let's then step forward, bringing the feet side by side. They don't have to be together, but they're side by side. And then release your arms and pause once again to feel. Notice and feel what's changing, what's shifting. You might feel sensation through the thighs or the hips, maybe the ankles or the feet. Okay, so our next pose is a balance pose. So if you want to find your way to a wall, I highly recommend that if you feel like your balance is a little off. And so I'm going to have this close. I may or may not use it. Let's see what happens. So find my way into the mountain pose. Right, I'll be nice and tall here, grounded in my feet, strong in my legs, lift through the spine. My arms are alongside me. Going to take an easy breath in, full breath out, and then start to really shift the weight of your body into your left foot and leg a little bit more. Root down into the left foot and leg. And then with your next inhale, again, reach through the fingers, breathe into your fingertips. And now as you exhale, let's come to draw that right knee up into the chest. Here's where you might find the balance is helpful. Hand to the wall can work. Or you simply work with your balance here. Now, after finding a little bit of stability, just like we did when we were on the ground on our side body, can we take our right hand down to the right ankle? Let go with your left hand. Your hand might come back to the wall or to your hip and point your knee to the ground. You're pulling your heel towards your seat. Now, what if you're not able to reach? What if that's not working for your shoulder? Remember the strap. The strap is just another prop to make these postures a little bit more comfortable. So you can do the same thing with your strap. Let's lift tall with the spine, reach down with the knee. Feel that lovely stretch through the front of your thigh. And then with your next inhalation, let it go. Try not to just drop that foot, but with control, lower the foot to the earth. And then we come to release, hand back alongside you if you're using the wall, and just feel the difference between the two sides. So it's a little bit more challenging. We have to move to another wall or turn around, right? So I'm going to go over to this side now. And as I shift over here, now I'm going to root back down into my feet, firm the legs, lift the spine, root down now into that right foot, that right leg. Inhale. Exhale, draw your left knee in. So we catch that knee, drawing it into the chest. Remember, your hand can be on some support, right? And then we slide the left hand to the ankle and then slowly, slowly point the knee to the ground. Yeah, drawing the heel towards the buttock. Again, if your knee doesn't bend that much or you're not able to reach the foot with as much ease, use your strap. Maybe I should show what that looks like, right? Wouldn't that be a good idea? So let's go ahead. You can hold as you are. Those of you that are wanting to use the strap, take a peek. I'm going to definitely use some support. I'll pull the knee in. I bring my foot into the loop of the strap, and then I point down to the ground. Right, so that's a nice way of working. I'll turn so you can see that. Yeah, good. Alrighty, so those of you that are still holding this pose as you are, let's go ahead and release. As we release, again, try not to just drop your foot. Lower the foot with ease. And then we pause. Put this strap off to the side. And we'll take a breath here in the mountain pose. Great, so we'll make our way back down to the ground. I'm going to come up to the top of my mat again. Fix my mat. It got a little squished up down there. And then we come back to mountain pose. And with an inhalation, let's lift the arms up. And as you exhale, fold over your legs. Once you've folded forward, inhale, lengthen your spine. And with your exhalation, bend your knees, bring your hands to the ground. Let's step back with one leg, bring that knee down. Step back with the other leg, bring that knee down. Tuck all 10 toes under, and then lift your hips. We're back in downward facing dog. We'll take a full breath here. And then with your inhalation, return your knees to the ground, arch your spine, look forward. Uncurl your toes. Let's settle the hips back, arms forward. Take a breath with me. And then we'll bring our hands to our knees, rise up to sit on the heels. So this is a little indication. If this is really challenging for you, sitting on your heels, you'll want to be high in your hero's pose. So I'm going to come up onto my shins. I'll make it a little bit easier. I'm going to take these two blocks, bring them onto my mat, just like that, stacked on top of each other. And then I'm going to bring my blanket on top of the blocks. It'll look like this. So if you're looking forward here, you're looking at me, you can see the two blocks, you can see the blanket fold. And then I come to sit, I'm going to frame the blocks and blanket setup with my feet, and then take my seat back to my setup. Right? This is the hero's pose. This is where we started, or at least where I was when you first joined me. So feel what that's like. See, my knees are together. Perhaps yours are. See that your feet point straight back and your heels straight up. And then what would it be like to move the blanket aside? What would it be like to go lower? Just notice. Does that feel good or is it challenging? Would you like to return the blanket to your setup? And then perhaps you change your block from 2 to 1. And when you change to 1, I would recommend bringing it to this height instead of this height to see what that's like. So I'm going to make that change now. Yeah. And then just feel what that's like. And then over time, you might even lower that block from here to here. You could have your blanket on top of the block. You could someday replace your block with just a blanket. So I'm just noticing what this feels like. What did this practice bring into this posture for you? We'll take a breath or two. Then we'll come forward. We'll move the blocks aside, and we're going to release the work altogether. So let's come onto our back for just a moment. You can take your blanket under your head again. Ease yourself down. Adjust so your blanket is only under your head. And now this time, can you let your legs straighten and drape open? So we're coming to our last pose. This is the Shavasana. Your hands can rest on your belly. You can release your arms open, letting yourself really just let go into the space that you're in. Feel for a moment where you're touching the ground. Let your weight grow heavier, softening places of resistance and grip, particularly through the hips and the thighs, around the knees, the calves, the ankles, the feet. You might feel a whoosh of coolness or warmth. And you can stay here for as long as you like. For the sake of our time together today, if you're ready to move forward, wiggle your fingers and toes, rotate your ankles and wrists, and to bend your knees. Take one arm overhead, roll over to that side, and press yourself up to sit. And as you come up to sit, you can sit in any way you like. Maybe you try the Virasana, the hero's pose again, and see what that's like for you. Or simply come up to a cross-legged seat. And that is our practice for today. Practice a short, fairly gentle, there's definitely some challenge in that. Practice hopefully bringing you to the hero's pose with a little bit more ease. You can try that maybe once or twice a week, see how it feels for your body, if it brings any changes. And if there's some things that you like to do to really make some space and take the posture in your body a little bit more comfortably, I'd love to hear about it. So drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought about this practice itself. And if you'd like to stay updated on these videos and tune in to when we next release a video, then definitely give us a subscribe. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Namaste.